Howdy folks, I'm a radical red raptor, repeatedly raking rusted roses.
I'm Amber.
And here are more rusted roses for us to rake.
You can do the raking yourself. I'll just listen to some Reddit.
Raking the roses red. Alright folks, our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Yelling at My Brother-in-Law After He Woke Me Up and Told Me to Make Him Dinner while we were staying at his house? I'm a 39-year-old female, and my husband, Tom, a 37-year-old male, and two sons, a 12-year-old male, were recently in a house fire and lost our home, but luckily, we were all out of the house when it happened. Tom's brother Sean, a 40-year-old male, and his wife agreed to let us stay at his place with their kids while we sort out the insurance. I don't like Sean, as he believes in traditional gender roles in the household. We have had issues since he realized that I would keep my maiden name at work, which I informed him was none of his business and my personal choice. He works full-time and his wife is a housewife. When we had our sons, Sean thought that I would quit my job as a doctor and become a stay-at-home mom. However, Tom became a stay-at-home dad instead, and then went back to work after our son went to school, and doesn't share the same thought process as Sean. Sean clearly disapproves of this and me, and has vocalized his thoughts about the situation. I got Tom to speak to Sean, and he left us alone since, but occasionally he would make comments about us at holidays and birthdays, which I ignored. They stopped when Tom returned to work, and since then, Tom says that Sean has grown as a person. Tom and Sean are very close, and I would never tell him to stop talking to him, but I personally interact as little as possible with Sean. My son's school and Tom's workplace is within walking distance from Sean's house, which is why I agreed to stay, and just get over it while we get back on our feet, as it is temporary. Well, yesterday was very hectic, and I was exhausted. My shift ended in middle day, and I went straight to bed. Everyone was out of the house. Sean and Tom went to work, the kids were at school, and Sean's wife went to see a friend. Sean got home first and woke me up. I was upset and still a little tired, and when I asked him why, he said that I should start making dinner as it was getting late and his wife was out and she wasn't picking up the phone. Usually I do the cooking in the house with his wife, but I was upset that Sean had woken me up and yelled at him not to disturb me. I kicked him out of my room and I told him that I was going to go back to sleep and he could sort out dinner. When I woke up in the evening, Sean told me that while I was under his roof, I needed to respect his house rules. I told him that he could have cooked himself and heated leftovers in the fridge or gotten takeaway. Tom thinks that Sean did overstep by waking me up and making demands, but I shouldn't have yelled at him and escalated the situation. I don't think that I'm the jerk, but I could have handled it slightly better maybe. But I want to get someone else's perspective. Alright folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. You were out working hard, OP, and needed some sleep, and he decides to barge in because, what, does he not have hands to make his own dinner? Pop something into the microwave?
Yeah, when you're woken up abruptly after a long day, it's pretty standard to wave off something that someone says because they're very tired and grumpy. Like, waking people up is never a good idea.
Yeah. Well, and the whole, like, this is my house, my rules. Like, you don't get to dictate that people, like, follow traditional gender roles in your home. Oh, well, you're here, so now you have to cook for me, and I can wake you up whenever I want. That's also, like, a fundamental lack of respect there, too, on top of that.
Yeah, I think that he just doesn't respect you or your job, and that's pretty clear. And he doesn't care if you get enough sleep, which is unfortunate. He doesn't sound like he's respecting you as a person. It's a difficult situation. I understand that it's troublesome because you have to live with him for an extended period of time until the insurance is worked out.
Yeah, although it may be worth investigating whether there's another friend you can stay with for a little while or something if he continues with this behavior.
Yeah, because this is just not good and he's not respecting you at all. So let me know what you folks think. Anyhow, take care and good luck. And MD Thomas says, normally I would agree with this sentiment, however, Rules, I think, generally refer to keeping clean and respecting property. Making a rule strictly based on your gender is unreasonable. You're not obligated to cook every day for a grown man, not the jerk. And temporary ad 1479 says, "My house, my rules" is for take your shoes off before stepping on the carpet, not for you're not allowed to sleep because your vagina means that you owe me dinner.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the best way of summarizing that right there. And Big Cup 321 says, "Wow, a fully capable adult waking another adult up to get her to make dinner for him. That's so mind-blowingly rude and ridiculous. I really wanted to say something about how if you could have been calmer, that would have been better, but I just can't imagine how you could get pulled out of sleep and calmly explain to this a walking anachronism that he's capable of using a microwave. You're 100% not the jerk."
Yeah, well, exactly. And also, I'm a little concerned about OP's husband here, too, with the way he's like, oh, well, you didn't need to yell and escalate things. Like, why is he not fully, but partially supporting someone who was that rude to OP?
Yeah. All right, folks, our next letter is titled, "Am I a jerk for allowing my son to watch a sea documentary?" Yes. Horrible. Not enough Krakens. 0 out of 0 out of 10. Around a week ago, my son, a 9-year-old male, and I, a 36-year-old female, were having a movie night because it was my day off and my husband, a 37-year-old male, was working. So to round it up, about last week, my son and I were scrolling through movies and shows, and Our Planet came up. My son then told me that he wanted to watch an episode about the sea. My son watched it and seemingly enjoyed it before going to sleep. My husband asked what I was seeing for movie night when he had gone home, so I told him what we had watched and chatted about it for a while. I didn't really expect anything because he didn't look angry or irritated. Well, the day or two after, my kid enthusiastically told us that he no longer wanted to be a doctor and instead he wanted to be a sea scientist, marine biologist. During breakfast, I was happy and I gave him encouragement by talking about his potential and options. My husband attempted to be a little supportive, but he was stiff and cold. After my son left for school, my husband told me that we shouldn't have watched the ocean documentary. When I was surprised and I questioned him why, he explained that he wanted our son to have a bright future and that I might have ruined it. Our son is at the top of his grade and that I made him distracted to an honorable job. He said that I would be responsible for crushing his dreams because he wouldn't pay any tuition. I argued that he was still only 9 and that dreams can change. I also advised him to support whatever career path he chooses. We argued back and forth, and I got caught up in the moment and I screamed at him to leave. He has been staying at his mother's house for a few days, and yesterday I received texts from his mother accusing me of attempting to destroy the lives of my husband and kid. I acknowledged that I was a bit dramatic and that I overreacted when I kicked him out, but I still disagree and will defend against what he said. Edit, my husband and I are going to talk it through, but I will apologize for sure for my behavior of kicking him out. My son doesn't know anything about this. If anyone misread, I'm not forcing or will ever force my son to be a marine biologist or any job just because of what he said at 9 years old. I'll have talks with him with whatever path he goes on. I'll be there for him. All right, folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. The husband's reaction is really, really troubling here. Like, there are a lot of really good jobs out there, including marine biologists. Not everyone has to be a doctor. Almost everyone changes their mind about what they want to be when they're 9. Like, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I did not become an astronaut. And so, trying to hold a kid to something they said they wanted to be at 9 is very, very strange. But there's some more troubling stuff here.
I mean, I think that the yelling at the husband and telling him to get out of the house was a bit far, and so I do agree on that, but I think that his behavior here is troubling. I think that this is not necessarily a good situation in that respect, and he shouldn't be trying to force his 9-year-old son to become a doctor of all things. Like, that's a very unreasonable point of view to be at, and it sounds like OP is supportive of the son no matter what they choose.
Yeah, and like if he's threatening to withhold financial resources, especially if they're household financial resources from the son, like it sounds like the husband's trying to make unilateral decisions about the child's future. And so like Yeah, yelling at someone, kicking them out isn't necessarily the best way to approach things, but depending on how he was approaching the subject, I can see why Opie would want to be away from him. And I think you need to have a real sit down over this, because if he's this upset when your son is 9 and wants to be a marine biologist instead of a doctor,
Yeah.
what is he going to do when your son is 13 and wants to be a rock star, or
Yeah.
16 and wants to be something else, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certainly more troubling behavior down the road. I do think that couples counseling is probably going to be something that they need to sit down and talk through, maybe even family counseling, because it sounds like this is a pretty big blow up. There needs to be some kind of intervention here to kind of help steer the relationship in the right direction and communication. And hopefully an outside perspective will help him see that it's pretty unreasonable to force a kid to do something down a certain career path.
Yeah, and make sure he doesn't have unilateral control over your finances. Like, I don't know what your financial situation is, but it sounds like he's the arbiter. Like, well, I'm not paying for the tuition, but if it's household money, like, you both should have a say. And so make sure you have some access to your financial resources, and what money from your income you can to set up a college fund that he can't take away from your son.
Yeah. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Aggravated Sand 8896 says, not sure kicking husband out is a bit dramatic, but it stopped your boy from having to see the argument. No idea what he does for a living, but he has to get his mom to fight his battles rather than discussing things with you. Did she pick his career for him? He could be proud that instead of watching cartoons, a fantasy film, etc., your son wanted to watch a documentary. According to your husband, your son cannot watch Pirates of the Caribbean in case he wants to become a pirate. Any sports in case he wants to become a sportsman. Super Mario in case he wants to become a plumber. The Magician's Elephant in case he wants to become a zookeeper. Peter and Wendy in case he wants to become a, well, who knows what. And he cannot go to school in case he wants to become a teacher. And OP replies, my husband has always been a bit traditional, but I never expected it to this extent. But I do know that his mom never liked me because of my ethnicity. Hopefully we can work things out. And Winter Coffin asks, what is your all's ethnicity? And OP replies, I'm Japanese and my husband is American. And ACAB, easy as 123, says, so your husband's family is racist, plus he's so controlling that he threatens a 9-year-old for wanting to be a scientist. Are you sure you want this to work out? And OP replies, I started saving for his tuition a year ago, so if my son chooses something else, I'd be there to pay for it. Also, I can't let my son grow up without a father. I'm going to suggest couples counseling in the discussion, but I think the whole situation can happen because we were having a difficult time. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I the jerk for not wanting my incestuous cousins at my wedding? I'm getting married this August, and there's some controversy with my family over who's invited and who isn't. I'm not comfortable with my cousin Rod, a 31-year-old male, and my pregnant cousin Ireland, a 17-year-old female, being at my wedding, as they're in what I think is an inappropriate relationship. Not only is she way too young and pregnant with his baby, they're also related. Their parents are siblings. I thought that this would be an obvious issue, but my family sees no problem with it. When my Aunt Rhonda, Rod's mother, heard that he wouldn't be invited, she freaked out. She couldn't believe that I wasn't inviting my own cousins to my wedding. When I explained why I was uncomfortable with it, Rhonda said that I was the only one in the family who thought so, and that I shouldn't make such a big deal out of it. After being confronted by the rest of the family on the matter, I gave in and I sent Ireland and Rod an invite. I was already unhappy with it, and to make matters worse, Ireland is insisting on wearing a white dress. I explained why her choice of outfit would be disrespectful. She argued that she should get to wear a white dress as she and Rod haven't gotten a wedding, despite her being pregnant. Now, this is the only issue that my fiance has. She was fine with the age gap and the incest thing because love is love, but Ireland wearing white is apparently too far. I honestly don't know what to do. I feel like I'm going crazy because this situation is so obviously wrong in my eyes, but nobody around me thinks so. I don't want to disappoint them, but I really don't want Ireland and Rod and my wedding to be messed up. Does anyone see where I'm coming from here, or am I the jerk and just don't realize it? All right, folks, what do you think about this one?
Maybe don't have the wedding, potentially. The incest part is in some ways secondary. The big issue is you have a child predator who groomed your cousin and has impregnated her. Do you really want a predator at your wedding?
Yeah, I think that's the real key problem here. This is not a good situation. This is actually a really bad situation.
And I feel really bad for Ireland. Like, I know it may feel like she's trying to ruin things with the whole white thing, but she's a scared teenager going through a really stressful time.
I mean, she's 17 for crying out loud, and she's pregnant, and she has a lot of other things going on. And I mean, certainly, like, this is not a good situation. I don't know what the laws are, because a lot of places have different laws about what the age of consent or majority is, and certainly if that's the case here, it doesn't make it any more ethical, let's put it that way. But at least I guess he probably won't go to jail. I mean, I say that at least, but unfortunately he won't go to jail.
Yeah, well, it's just such an icky situation, and I feel so bad for her, but I certainly don't think you can have them at your wedding.
Yeah, and the fact that your wife or fiance doesn't see anything that's wrong with this also is pretty concerning. I mean, I think that this is more like maybe you should run away from all these people.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say too. You're 100% right there.
Yeah.
Why doesn't she see that that's wrong?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of things that are wrong here, but OP, I certainly don't think that you're in the wrong here. You might be focusing on the slightly the wrong thing here, but you can see how bad of a situation this is, whereas everyone else seems to think this is hunky-dory. Anyhow, take care and good luck.
Maybe run away from your family too.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah. I meant run away from all
everything. Just run.
And Bunny O'Hara says, not the jerk. Your whole family is nuts, including your fiancé, who is okay with incest and grooming a minor, but draws the line at a white dress. If I was you, I would get in my car and just keep driving without looking back at any of them. Honestly, do we need any more advice than that?
No, I think that's pretty much sums it up.
Kuchi Kopai 49 says, I don't think I've ever suggested someone to run and call off a wedding, but run and call off the wedding. If your fiancé doesn't have a problem with incest and child grooming, then holy cow, run. Do you want to be married to someone like that? And Single Vacation 427 says, so he groomed her and got her pregnant. He is 15 years older than her. That's disgusting. She could be his child. On top of that, they are related, which gave him opportunities for grooming and taking advantage of her. It sounds like your fiancé would be fine if your future daughter gets groomed and knocked up by a family member. Is this who you want to marry? Not the jerk, but your family is a mess, and your future family is going to continue the trend. All right, folks, it is tea time. We need some tea after that to cleanse the palate. I've got some tea right here, and Amber allegedly has a joke.
What warning might you see on a Marine Museum gift shop?
Well, the only warning I can think of is don't visit this store with your child, otherwise they might want to become a scientist and not a doctor.
I mean, that too. I guess my joke works very well with this, but caution, shark objects.
That's pretty good. Did you come up with that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I have Earl Grey. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Happy Wednesday. Wow, we're almost through the week. In a couple of days, we'll be in the live stream. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance. And please have it in the form of a nature documentary.
And here we see our lovely butterfly fluttering by. Unless you're a child, then you shouldn't be watching this, because then you might be influenced to become a
butterfly,
a scientist, a filmmaker, a film producer, any number of jobs that are not doctor. And clearly, doctor is the only acceptable profession.
It really is.
/ sarcasm.
It really is the only acceptable profession out there. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Bye.